Bachelor for Life here with an unboxing video in my first installment of what I'm going to call Knives and News. I just picked this bad boy up off of eBay. I got a pretty good price on it, but judging from the pictures, it was in pretty rough condition, so there's going to be no cutting in this video, so I figured I'd fill the time with maybe talking about current events. And obviously the most current event I can think of is the Facebook servers and outage with WhatsApp and all that, and kind of what that means for people and with everything that's going on. I noticed it today personally, and I'll start off by telling a little story. You know, I was out working with a customer today, and you know, he was on edge. You know, he's all jacked up. Obviously he was upset with the situation between our company and his company, and as we were kind of talking through it, you know, there's always that baseline problem, you know, with the problem that's underneath everything. And, you know, he kind of let it loose. He said the company that he's working for is forcing him to, take the, what I'm going to call the 19J, you know, and he doesn't want to do it, but he has to in order to keep his job. And, as we're talking through it, he's like, he's split, because he's like, well, you know, I'm a single man. His kid's, 30 something years old, and he really has no reason not to fight it and just kind of figure it out as he goes. But he's just beat down. You know, he said the last year has been pretty rough. They lost a lot of guys. They don't have a huge team right now. So everybody's kind of working double duty. So he's already been beat down with that. You know, obviously the virus has kind of, affected his work as well. He works from state to state, so travel's been kind of a pain for him and all this. And, he was screaming and yelling at me right off the bat, when I showed up. And, it was kind of funny to me, because all that time, out away from home like he is, he has to rely a lot on, like, the media. He relies a lot on, maybe his Netflix and his YouTube and Facebook and all that. And that's kind of his distraction from the world. So, seeing Facebook go down like it did today, and, Twitter, I don't know if it was Twitter, or it looks like Instagram for sure was down, and WhatsApp was down. And it sounds like, that's his contact. He did say, he said something about his he reaches out to his kid, and they use, the Facebook Messenger, and he was having troubles on that. And honestly, I hadn't really noticed it much. I mean, I was pretty busy, so it hadn't really affected my day at all. But this guy, being so far from home, that's his only contact with why he does it all, And I guess my point to the whole story, without rambling too much, is, with everything that, people have been through since 2020 to now, along with, maybe having outages, some of the shakeups we've had, whether you're on the left or the right, some of the things that have happened there, and, really affected people's mindset. And when you lose your ability to reach out and contact family, or you lose that, whatever app it is that you use as a distraction, I'm thankful it wasn't YouTube, because I mean, the first thing I was thinking was, man, I want to get home and I want to watch, I want to get on YouTube, watch my YouTube stories. So back to the knives a little bit here. I want to do my video. The knife that I just purchased on the left there, that's the Buck Alpha Hunter, which is a folding style. It's a Buck 277. On the right hand side, I've got my Tops Buck collaboration, which is the CSAR-T. So throughout the video, I'll just refer to it as Alpha and CSAR. Obviously the Alpha is kind of the OG. It was what Buck brought to the table when Tops and Buck decided to do the collaboration. I mean, it's pretty apparent when you look at them. They're very similar. The biggest differences that you'll notice, the Tops, or the CSAR, on the right hand side is a little thicker. The Buck, everything is just a little slimmer. Even the even the back on the spine there, and the stop, the blade thickness, everything thinner. The other major difference that you'll notice, I'm not entirely sure what the steel is made of, but the CSAR on the right hand is much heavier than the Alpha is. The little holes there on the CSAR, it has a 1/4-inch drive. On the Alpha, it's just like a paracord lanyard or lanyard hole, whatever. So flipping them open here, I've got on the Alpha, it's more of a clip point. Feels good in the hand. The wood handle does kind of fit pretty well. Now this knife is it's a little beat up. I did get a pretty good price on it. Very, very wobbly. Needs to be tightened up. I might have to get some new washers for it. I haven't taken it apart yet, so I don't know if the washers are bent or damaged or anything. But they both do have the both of them do have the bronze style washers. Now the other thing I noticed when kind of playing with these things was how well they flick, and part of it is the thumb stud is kind of tucked in that first finger choil, so you can kind of wedge your thumb in there and just get a real good flick on it. I had to bring out the my OG CSAR just to kind of compare it. Not really a fair comparison up against the CSAR because that one's still brand new. So, but yeah, so you can see here that the choil and the finger grooves really nice on both knives. It's almost identical. The biggest differences, and I'm not sure what it is, what the steel is that the handle's made of. But looking at the liner lock on the Alpha, well, the CSAR, it's much thicker and harder to push over, whereas the Alpha, it's a very thin metal, so it pushes over really easy, but then it snaps back really easy. Now that's always been one of my biggest pet peeves with this knife. Why have such an overbuilt knife with a liner lock? But the CSAR does have a pretty heavy duty liner lock, so it's never really failed me. I would imagine the Alpha, it's not your standard, or it's just kind of your standard everyday, every man's carry knife, I guess. Not everyday carry. I consider an everyday carry knife something like my 4-Max. My 4-Max Scout, that's like an everyday carry for me. I want something that no matter what happens, I mean, if the shit hits the fan, I've got a knife. If I need to trim my nails, I got a knife. And that's kind of the way I look at it. The Alpha, lining them all up here, thickness, they're all just about the same. But when you're looking at bang for the buck, I'm thinking and obviously I'm going to go with the cold steel, but the 4-Max is, it's a little bit thinner, and it's a hell of a knife. And then I pull out the code for it. I'm like, for as thin as this knife is, and as powerful as that knife is, and the stuff that I've done with it, I'm like, I could see why Buck discontinued the Alpha, mainly because it's obsolete for today's everyday carry. Honestly, I feel like knives kind of tell a story of the times. If you look at when that Alpha was brought out, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, what the world was like then, compared to now. 2010, the Alpha, right? Lightweight steel. I mean, it's a lightweight handle, wood. It's still kind of fancy. It looks. I mean, it just looks like your old time, hunting and skinning knife, compared to like the 4-Max. And I know it's made by Cold Steel, and they always kind of go the extra mile. But even with that being said, the CSAR was later in the 2000s, and you could just tell the difference. You could tell the difference of kind of what the world's like. You transition from the wood grain and the shiny handle, or the shiny grips and the wood handle, and I mean, it's got a good blade on it. It's got a good steel, 154 cm. But then you flip over to the CSAR, which came out a couple of years later. You think back to like the 2012s and 2014, 2015 era, kind of some of the things that were going on there. And what do you have? You've got G10 handles. You've got uh, you've got like a stonewash finish on the blade, so it's not reflective. You've got a bit driver on it. You know, who would have thought? I mean, obviously, the Alpha no bit driver's got a lanyard hole so you don't drop it, but the Caesar, it's got a bit driver in case you need to use your knife as a screwdriver. So for me, I guess basically it's pretty easy to see that we we've obviously changed over the years for what our EDC looks like, and a lot of that has to do with what it looks like in the world. I'm not saying Facebook going down and WhatsApp going down is going to cause the end of the world, but for some people, it's one of the straws that breaks the camel's back. It's getting to a point where, if you see Netflix go down, if you see, the internet go down for an extended period of time. I mean, hell, when it went down here for a week, for the kids especially, it felt like all hell had broken loose. Me, I'd come out and sharpen some knives, maybe throw some knives, maybe throw a hatchet or two. There's plenty of things to do, other than the electronics. And I think that's what people need to get back and get right with nature, get right with, the real world. These knives, for me, it's a way to kind of ground myself and think about, how much things have changed. And I really think you can see it in the knives. And I think you can see it in the people. And just ask yourself a question. What would I do if my Netflix went down, or if my Facebook went down for more than a day? How am I going to get in contact with my family? How am I gonna keep myself distracted? What am I gonna do to keep myself preoccupied? What are you gonna do for fun? With that being said, I think I'll wrap it up. Please leave a comment below, like the video if you liked it, and share if you got somebody that might be interested in this content. And with that, Bachelor for Life signing out.